This is the Ultimate C controller from 8BitDo, a stripped down, cheaper version of their Ultimate controller, which I have said before is being one of my favorite ones on the market right now. In fact, it is currently my go-to controller for the Nintendo Switch specifically. The Ultimate C removes a number of Pro Controller style features that are on the full-blown Ultimate controller, while also reducing some of its core functionality options. For instance, this one in particular is a PC and Android option only, so it cannot be used with Switch, but can be used on Steam Deck, PC, Android, and Raspberry Pi, but still offers the same or at least very similar build quality of the Ultimate controller at the much lower price point of $20 for this wired version. There is also a wireless version using a 2.4 gigahertz dongle. I have not had any hands-on experience with that one just yet, though I have seen it go up listed for $30, so that's maybe like a midpoint option for people to look at. But my experiences right now are talking about this cheapest option at $20, which is aggressive, compared to their more expensive full-featured $70 option. And I think the first thing I want to touch on is all the features that are basically removed compared to the Ultimate controller. As I said, this is not a Switch-compatible controller. Hopefully they make a Switch version down the line, because I think a cheap Switch option from 8BitDo would be something that a lot of people would be interested in. But as far as a lot of additional special features go for its use on PC, this controller does not feature any back buttons, so there's no additional options there or remapping. It does not use any of the software features available for the Ultimate controller, so all the things you can customize an app like remapping all the controller's buttons, setting up macros, stick sensitivities, rumble intensities, all the stuff is not present on this controller either. And one other slightly specialized feature that I think matters to a lot of people that is actually in a sense not cut, but is cut, is motion controls. The reason why I say it is cut but not cut is the fact that the Ultimate controller only had motion controls specifically for the Nintendo Switch. So this controller being an option that does not work on Switch at all, obviously the motion controls are not present in any form. So with all those things removed, what are you still actually getting with the controller? Well, you're getting a controller. While all those bells and whistles are nice to hear about and can be a great selling point for some people, at the end of the day, sometimes you just need a controller, and that is what the Ultimate C is still delivering on. It has the same exact body shape and grip as their Ultimate controller, same button sticks, D-pad layout, and for the most part, all of these things feel the same. In particular, D-pad sticks, trigger button tension, all identical. The only one that feels a little bit different to me, and I don't know if this is an intentional difference between the Ultimate controller and this Ultimate C, or if it's just a result of manufacturing variants. The ABXY buttons on the Ultimate C feel ever so slightly more stiff compared to the ones on my regular Ultimate controller. It's not like a night and day difference, and to be honest, if I didn't have the controller side by side to constantly swap between and feel, I don't know if I even would have noticed it immediately. But when doing things like rapid presses and really just feeling how the entire experience of pressing the button feels, the Ultimate C just has this little bit of extra stiffness to it from full press compared to my $70 controller, in which I do prefer the feeling of the regular Ultimate, but again, they are so extremely close, it's definitely a bit of a splitting hair situation. As far as just the feeling of the controller in your hand goes, this feels pretty much identical to the Ultimate as well, as far as the materials being used for the plastics, the weight and weight distribution of the controller, despite this being a wired option. Side by side, this one does feel ever so slightly lighter, but again, it's kind of a splitting hair situation. One other quick visual difference between this controller and the regular Ultimate, while it feels the same overall, there are some slight differences on how the actual construction and build looks. Particularly, you have some exposed screws on the back of the controller that are not present on the Ultimate. Also worth noting, the Ultimate does come with a charge stand, which obviously for this wired version is not a thing at all. You would not need one, but it is worth pointing out that the wireless version of it does look like it will not be shipping with one of those either. If you're going to charge it, you have to rely on using a cable instead. One really big difference that I don't think is being really made super obvious with this thing until people start asking questions, and it's one that I understand, and it is an important difference for people to be aware of. At the same time, I do think it's one that's maybe a little overstated right now in the current culture of controller reviews. This Ultimate C does not use Hall effect sticks like the Ultimate controller does. If you don't know what I mean by that, Hall effect sensors have been a really big talking point in a lot of controllers lately, because compared to other more traditional stick technologies that have been used over the past couple decades, they are not capable of developing stick drift, at least in the same way as other methods. And I understand why this is a huge selling point for a lot of people, because especially if you're coming from the Nintendo Switch, Joy-Con drift was a massive, very common issue, but it's kind of exploded a little bit, in my opinion, to being applied to all controllers out there that are using non-Hall effect sensor sticks, when the fact of the matter is we've been using non-Hall effect sensor sticks in a lot of different controllers over the past couple decades, and drift has not been nearly as prevalent of an issue. It absolutely is something that can occur and develop over time, but I honestly do think the fear that a lot of people have of stick drift is a lot greater than the actual statistic represent, especially for controllers that are, again, not the Nintendo Switch Joy-Cons, which are the main poster child for really making people aware that this is an issue that can happen. That said, I absolutely understand the peace of mind that comes with getting a controller that has Hall effect sensors right now, and especially when we're talking about investing in more expensive controllers, it is definitely a spec worth emphasizing. I just want to also, I think, maybe tone down how important some people really lean into talking about this, because there's almost a sentiment that any controller that's not using Hall effect sensors is absolute garbage and should be ignored, and it's honestly just not the case. With that in mind, if you've just been burned too many times by Joy-Cons, or you've had bad luck with other controllers, or it's just a thing that you are really truly worried about and want to have some peace of mind away from, the Ultimate C is not a controller that has those in store. That is something that you have to pay extra to get their actual full-blown Ultimate controller to make use of. One other gripe about the controller I want to talk about real quick is that for this wired version specifically, the cable length on it, in my opinion, is just not quite enough. There's a couple cable lengths that are fairly standard in controllers these days. Personally, I always love to see a wired controller come in a 10-foot option, which more often than not is actually a 3-meter option, but that always feels like a good, safe amount of distance to where if you're using it in a living room setup where you're on a couch relative to a TV, that's going to be able to reach comfortably. Whereas this one comes with a 6-foot cable, which is just under 2 meters if you're using a more sane method of measuring distances, which is enough for things like desk setups, or if you have a particularly small, more up-close TV setup for couch gaming, but it's a length that ends up definitely running a little more taut in the vast majority of setups. Now, where this gets a little weird with this is that because this is a PC-focused controller, vast majority setups for a lot of people are going to be desk setups. Where I see living room situations coming up more, though, is again, part of what this is being advertised for is used with Steam Deck, and that's actually where the majority of my testing took place. And while a Steam Deck can be used in a desk-style setup, it absolutely leaves itself more open to a TV couch setup as well, and so that's exactly the kind of situation where this cable length is going to come up to be a little bit more of an issue. If you like the sound of this controller overall, but you want something you are not worried about the cable length, the wireless model might be something worth paying attention to for that extra $10. Overall, my main feelings on this controller is that at $20, this is a very aggressively priced, awesome option at the low end. While I think there are things to be gained by spending more money on some of their fancier versions, as far as just looking at the market of $20 controllers that are out there, this one I think blows a lot of the other options right out of the water. I think the only feature that I would have loved to see maintained on this that was removed, aside from Switch compatibility, is the back buttons. I just really always like having a pair of back button options, and if there was just like a $25 version of this controller, I think that would have been a perfect sweet spot for me. But still, maintaining the same kind of shape, grip quality, buttons and sticks and everything that the full-blown Ultimate offers at a $20 price point, this thing is, I think, an awesome pickup for PC desk setups. So those are my thoughts on the Ultimate C controller from 8BitDo. I'm going to go ahead and list this controller along with a couple of its other sibling options like the regular Ultimate and the wireless Ultimate C down below in descriptions if you're interested in grabbing any of those. Make sure to go down there and check that out. As always, if you enjoyed the video, hit that thumbs up button to let me know, subscribe if you haven't yet, and I'll see you guys later.